Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and we're getting deep into the Martin Scorsese train as my very, very, very good friend, long friend, we've been friends for 11 years, Matt, is here to join me this time, and obviously Matt has popped up a few times on Lost in the Wasteland. He's been on a few shows here for like Fargo, No Country for Old Men. Which Kubrick film? A Clockwork Orange we did together, and then obviously we have our Development Hell podcast together. So, Matt, longtime collaborator, and we're here to talk about Taxi Driver, which is my personal favorite Scorsese movie.
Nice.
So, but for those who have watched the show before, this is how we go. We do coming attractions, then our feature film, and then some recommendations. But before we get into that, Matt, would you like to shamelessly plug anything movie-related?
Yeah, so I just watched the movie Raw on Netflix.
We're going to get to that. I meant, do you have any like accounts you want people to follow or anything like that?
Yeah, accounts? Not really? Yeah, no.
He has a letterbox.
Oh. I mean, yeah, definitely fine.
And you should find his Instagram, First Floor Noise, and listen to all of his music. Yeah. I'll shamelessly plug for you, Matt. It's okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah, the whole account is basically like cringy approximations of how songs should be. As I'm learning how to play piano.
He's doing a good job.
Thank you.
He's being hard on himself.
Thank you.
But we get started with our coming attractions for the week of October 22nd. We're getting into the meat of October. A lot of big movies coming out this month. And Matt, what is your pick for coming attraction for that weekend?
Coming attraction for this coming... So I guess I'll go Dune.
So why is Dune your pick?
So I'll go Dune because... So I never read the book. I mean, I've heard about the other movie for a super long time.
David Lynch.
Yeah, like... Even when I was in high school, I remember there's this sci-fi movie that many people should watch, whether or not you like it or not, because it has all this wild stuff going on. It has like a giant space worm. That's all I've ever heard about.
Space worms!
And I'm like, okay, then I never really thought about it.
Let the spice flow.
Yeah, exactly. Face full of spice. But now, it looks... I'm watching this trailer, and I'm never like bored of watching this thing. Like the music in the background, I think it's like a Slow Down Nirvana song or something. Like this trailer looks fantastic. The cast is awesome. So those two things are kind of like my hook. So yeah, I mean, let's see what happens. If the movie's good enough, maybe I'll read the whole book. I think this movie is supposed to be kind of like the first half of the book.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
And it's supposed to get a sequel. If it does well, we'll see with it being on... Well, I have a lot of thoughts on that, especially because, like, this is from Denis Villeneuve, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049 was amazing. Blade Runner 2049 was also a very expensive science fiction film that bombed.
There we go.
So, is Dune also going to bomb? Because this is a strange film, except they're doing a lot more for this film to try to make the trailers make this seem mainstream.
Yeah, and there's, like, a lot of, like, mainstream actors in it, too. Like Jason Momoa... and Oscar Isaac.
To be fair, Blade Runner 2049 had Ryan Gosling.
Very true.
And Harrison Ford in it.
Very true.
This does have, like, everyone. Like, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård. And I'm definitely missing more people because there are indeed more people in this movie. And it looks incredible. And looks crazy. This was a really hard choice not to pick Dune for my pick for this weekend, but we're going to find out why in a second. But Dune, I've been super excited for, so I'm definitely down, and I'll probably be seeing it in the theater Saturday night.
Woo.
But my pick is The French Dispatch, and I had to pick it because I am such a huge Wes Anderson fan, and this was my number one... Actually, so I feel like this is my number 2 most anticipated film for this year, behind No Time to Die, because like that just needed to come out after so long, and being a huge Bond fan. But I'm a huge fan of Wes Anderson. Speaking of casts,
Frances McDormand.
There's like 50 people in this movie, just based off of the trailer. And it looks like the most Wes Anderson-y Wes Anderson movie ever. I thought he couldn't Wes Anderson himself with Beyond Grand Budapest Hotel, but I think he did. So I'm very interested to check it out. What is it about? A couple of stories about reporters and stuff doing the reporting thing, I guess. Seems like what it's about. But I don't care. I'm already signed up. What are your thoughts on French Dispatch?
I mean, yeah, he's the kind of director that I feel like I'll kind of like watch anything he puts out because like why not, right? I mean, he's funny. There's like these weird camera things that he does, and it's kind of like interesting to go, oh yeah, he does like that one thing, or like the random like shots and stuff like that. I think that I would say like Moonrise Kingdom. If I were to redo my top 20, I feel like I would definitely put that on my top 20. I don't know,
Nice.
but he's just a very interesting director. The trailer, the reason why I didn't put like that movie instead of Dune, because the trailer didn't 100% grab me story wise. I mean, I saw the teaser. I don't know, but
There's
like
just too many stories
very
to
true.
kind of capture what the movie's actually about. I do laugh every time where it's like, I'll buy your painting. It's not for sale. It is for sale. It's not for sale. And just having Adrian Brody and Benicio del Toro go back and forth. Benicio del Toro is also in Dune. Forgot him on our laundry list of Dune actors. Along with this laundry list of actors for this movie too. But that's a fair point. Like, I don't really know what it's 100% about. Grand Budapest, I remember when those trailers came out, I was hooked like that. I'm just like, I need to see this movie right now. And it's in my top 10 of all time.
Nice.
So I love me some Wes Anderson. As I'm looking up, as Matt can see as well, along my wall with Rushmore, Roy Tenenbaums, and the Life Aquatic of Steve Zissou posters up on my wall. So, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Fingers crossed this movie's great. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I'm going to be interested. I think I'm flying solo next week for New York. But the coming attraction for that week is going to be The Last Night in Soho.
Ah.
And it hasn't been getting great reviews, which makes me sad. But that's another week. That's not this week. We're going to be looking forward to watching Dune and French Dispatch. I'm looking forward to both of them. Super excited for both of them. And you also have, coming out that week, you have Ron's Gone Wrong, which is like an animated movie about a robot doing robot things. And then you have The Electrical Life of Lewis Wayne, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, which is about a famous artist. And also The Harder They Fall, which is a new Western from Netflix with a whole bunch of black actors, with like Jonathan Majors and Idris Elba and Zazie Beetz, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield, Damon Wayans Jr., Regina King. So like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Looks like a lot of fun. But be an interesting week. A lot of good material. But what we're here to talk about this week, which we literally just watched together, is Taxi Driver. And this is Scorsese's, like, I feel like this is his first, like, great film that he got a bunch of accolades for and a lot of attention in 1976. Looking at, they have award stuff here on IMDb. So this was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Jodie Foster, it looks like. Let's go back to here. So it actually won, it was nominated for Best Picture, which lost to Rocky. It was nominated for Best Actor for Robert De Niro, who lost to Mr. Finch, who for Network. Best Supporting Actress, Jodie Foster, who was like 14 years old. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And Oscar nominated for Best Music Original Score for Bernard Herrmann, which I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But this was Scorsese's first like Best Picture nomination. Surprised he didn't get nominated for Best Director. That's interesting. But what are your general thoughts, Matt, on Taxi Driver?
Yeah. So I like this movie a lot. This movie is very interesting. It's if you don't really think about it too much, then or if you make the mistake to kind of like identify with this person, then it's kind of just like this. And I do find that would be like a mistake to identify with him. But I feel like your main character, Travis Bickle, you can kind of see it on the surface as just like this guy that's pissed and he doesn't want to take like whatever like the hell like life and society is giving him, and he just wants to fight back, and he wants to figure out how to fight back. He gets the tools, guns and knives and whatever, and he kind of just like hones his body, so I guess to make himself almost like a weapon. And then he just wants to just go out and just like avenge and make the world around him just this picture of whatever the hell he wants it to be. I think, but when you look deeper into it, like this is like a very flawed and like probably like mentally, not probably actually like mentally ill like person. He's incredibly he has an incredibly hard time connecting with people. I feel like his empathy is kind of like on the E instead of like like you know what I mean, like his gas tank. I think that he is very very violent. I feel like the way that he wants to I guess like cleanse the world, it kind of reminds me of, or I guess this thing reminds me of Taxi Driver. Rorschach from The Watchmen. I feel like there's a lot of different interesting similarities you can make, where it's kind of like there's just this person who is just so disillusioned and angry and wants to do something about it, that his idea is that like most people are scum.
Purge.
Yeah, just like this is full on.
They looked up at me.
Yeah.
And said, "Save us."
Save us. And I
said,
whispered,
"No."
Yeah, and that was a really good trailer too. Like super awesome Smashing Pumpkins song. But no, just a misanthrope that has way too much time on his hands and probably should have used Ambien instead of taxi driving to figure out his insomnia. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Taxi Driver, interesting movie. Not a date movie. Not a date movie.
And don't take your dates to the movies that he takes his dates on.
Also, not a date movie.
Not good to be taking your dates to adult films.
Yeah.
But
nope.
You have Travis Bickle in this film, like Matt talked about there. This character you're stuck with, and you see this whole entire world through his perspective, which is arresting. And like the fact that Scorsese will put you in this situation as an audience, as you sit there and try to process the horrible perspectives that this man has on the world. Like, he's a disillusioned veteran. He's probably seen some horrible things, probably has PTSD, and also very antisocial and doesn't know how to interact with people. Like, he'll sit staring down, like I even pointed this out while watching the movie, him staring down a couple of like black men in a diner while all of his like taxi driver friends or like colleagues are trying to engage with him, and he's just like staring them down. He spends all of his time in his taxi staying up all night, and like De Niro even did that to get prepared for this role, actually being a taxi driver, because method acting and stuff like that. At least he didn't sharpen his teeth. Who would do that for a role? Robert De Niro. But you have this strange person, and we're stuck in their head. And it's a very challenging thing for a filmmaker to be able to put us in the mind of somebody so very different than us, and us being there, hearing his darkest, most uncomfortable thoughts, you being there, seeing his point of view when he's trying to buy guns, slowly like pointing them at actual people out the window, because good gun safety right there. You should never point a gun at anything you aren't prepared to shoot. I know that, and I've never once even fired a gun, so there you go. But his disturbing courting of Sybil Shepherd's character, Betsy, is so strange. And because, he just has this infatuation based off of her looks. He's never really interacted with her before, but he feels entitled to her. And he goes in there confidently, and she might assume that confidence is something to be admired, but it's more of like this disturbing confidence that like I deserve you. You should be with me. And, that's a kind of thing we see a lot in, unfortunately, a lot of people's perspectives in terms of the opposite sex, mostly men, mostly on the internet. And this kind of film is so disturbing. Like Matt brought up, like some people look up to this type of character and how he deals with these dark, disturbing feelings that he has, and like that whole courting of Betsy and how wrong that goes, and like he goes in there with violence, threatening to beat up Albert Brooks, who's also a fun addition to this movie. Feels like an odd addition, but like he brings some comic relief, which is sorely needed because this is a very dark movie. And then he sees himself as this vigilante hero trying to save a young sex worker, and we'll get to that in a second. And then just this vigilante thing, like he's willing to shoot a politician to get Betsy's attention. Mm. He's willing to take down a pimp and his whole operation to save this young woman. He has this complex where he's some kind of dark crusading vigilante hero. And it's so dark and disturbing where it's such an interesting comparison of Rorschach, because like Watchmen actually takes a look at superheroes and it's like, there's something wrong here with this perspective that it's like you think that you can police everybody and like protect everyone and do what you perceive as justice. I don't know if I want to have Travis Bickle's justice as what's protecting me. And it's pretty disturbing in that way. And this is all just this character, and there's a lot of other moving parts here. But Matt, what do you think of Scorsese's direction in this film?
So I really like the fact that. So how many movies in was this? Like yeah.
So feature films.
Yeah, feature film.
Like there's only a handful of feature films up to this point, because he had, Who's That Knocking at My Door, Boxcar Bertha, Mean Streets, and Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. This is his 5th feature film.
Wow. It's very interesting. Like when you watch, there's like random tiny little things that happen with the camera, whether it's like just like this slow motion thing, or when he uses, I guess when he wants like certain pieces of music to be put inside of the movie. Like there's like this ominous kind of like I don't know what instrument that is, but it almost
there's a lot of horns, and stuff like that. Bernard Herrmann's just rocking the all the horns, and like there's like the and just like this deep ominous, because there's the and just like this jazzy kind of theme throughout most of the film, and it has that like cool kind of feeling to it, but like when it gets intense, there's just like this deep bellowing kind of horns, and it's just disturbing.
And I really liked it because it kind of like it really like it did well to underscore like this transformation that he was kind of like going through. Whether like you start off, he's like right before he gets the job as like a taxi driver, and then so you kind of like get introduced to who he is, and then go from that to just like this person that is maybe confusing the social skills that one would only get if they were to watch like movies and TV and say, okay, that's how I'm supposed to interact with other people or make friends or try to get a date. Maybe that's, and then like he's trying to like use stuff that he's watching, I guess, maybe, and like the porn stuff, maybe that's what he wants like really badly, and then to go from that, and then it's kind of like disappointment because that stuff doesn't work, which which I'd be interested to know like how many people use, let's say like the internet or just like other like media in general to kind of like base what they should do in social situations instead of being, or because they feel uncomfortable in being in like those situations. I don't know. But it doesn't work. Like it probably wouldn't usually like in real life, and then he becomes like super angry and aggressive, and he just kind of like keeps like meditating on this stuff. I really like the fact that like Scorsese has just like this idea of it's just like this weird metamorphosis. So whether it be like the musical changes or just it's just like the whole thing. I think the ending with the with like the shootout and stuff like that, I thought that was really interesting.
It's visceral. It's arresting. Like the quick sped up camera and then the slow motion. That whole entire slow motion track coming out after, and it just has the music going on, and it's just that camera pulling all the way through, looking at all the carnage out onto the streets and like pulling away. You have shots like you have that metamorphosis of Travis where he's just like normal dude and then he gets like ripped out of his mind and him getting in super shape, and then that amazing shot at Palatine's rally of just this low midsection body shot, and you're just sitting on it, and then he's like playing around with something and lifts his hand up to his mouth, and the camera pulls up with the hand, and you just see that mohawk, and you're just like, oh no. Oh no.
Metamorphosis complete.
Yes, into something dark and ominous and disturbing, and you're just like, nope, something bad's gonna happen here. And it's interesting because his first plan is to kill a politician. His second plan is to take out a pimp. And he winds up having to go with his second plan, and that winds up giving him this strange like hero complex. And people think he's just like this hero because he took out these seedy people, but like he had a bloodthirst on some level here. And what's interesting is because like how much of like that ending is real? And is that really happening? Did he really make it through getting shot through the throat? Well, I guess it was like through here. He was bleeding out and everything. You see the scar on his neck in the last scene as he's walking away from his colleagues into the car, and Betsy's there. And like he's playing coy and like not trying too hard about it. But like there's something dark there and something messed up. And like dead inside. There's like a lot of darkness behind those eyes a lot of the time. And like going back to Scorsese as a director, that's very visceral finale. It's just in your face, doesn't pull punches. Like Scorsese does not pull punches in his movies. And there's even some great camera work here. Like I talked about in Mean Streets, there's like the most Scorsese shot you could ever have. This slow track in on Harvey Keitel to Jumpin' Jack Flash from the Rolling Stones. And this, even like little things where like Travis is with Iris in that room for the first time, and the camera is on Travis, cuts back to Iris, and just like the slow pan across. That's a very Scorsese kind of camera move. Like having the camera moving instead of just having you could have just had a static shot on Iris there, but that camera movement's very Scorsese. Left to right, right to left kind of camera movements on characters gives this sense of like we're gliding through this movie. And I feel like that's what makes a lot of his films feel very slick and stylish and cool. Is that, like, obviously not this one. This feels gritty and grimy. It really fits the New York that this takes place in, because there's something seedy and gross about it. And, like, there's not much seedier and grosser than Martin Scorsese in this movie, which is that one, like, even Travis is disturbed by this guy who wants to kill his wife for cheating on him. And
in a very like particular kind of way,
yes,
that it's so like misogynistic the way that he wants to. It's a very interesting
and racist.
Yeah, and a racist. Like he's, I feel like a lot of characters, or at least that guy in Travis, is very interesting. Kind of just like this frustration and anger that they have towards something that they can't control. So then it's where this guy and his wife that's like cheating on him, and then it's almost kind of like he's like pissed off at this like the other man, but not because of the adultery, maybe because of kind of like some weird race stuff going on. So then he feels maybe inadequate. I don't know, but like so then he wants to take it out on her by basically mutilating her with a gun, like this wild stuff.
Yes.
Terrible.
where you shoot that gun and what damage that it does. And not just in the head. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But this film is so, like, Scorsese's so confident in what he's able to do as a filmmaker with a Paul Schrader script, mind you. Because Paul Schrader, if you've ever seen one of his films, there's no pulling punches. First Reformed, The Card Counter, these are some intense graphic films, and you feel that in this film. And this is, I think, Scorsese at his seediest and most disturbing and gross. Because, like, Scorsese has made a lot of films with very seedy protagonists. Like, the characters that we follow along, whether it's Jake LaMotta, or, was it Rupert Pumpkin, or whatever, from, King of Comedy, or it's, Henry Hill, like, from Goodfellas, and his character from Casino, and Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street. There's just this long string of, like, seedy, just disturbing characters, but, like, we're lost in their world, and we hear De Niro doing this internal monologue. And, by the way, this is one of De Niro's first leading roles. Boy, does he kill it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And the whole, you talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
You talking to me? You talking to me? I don't see anybody else here. You talking to me? You must be talking to me. And, like, it's so funny because, like, you see that parodied so much and, like, copied, and you can see, like, you talking to me? And, like, overdoing it. And he's just very cold and paranoid. And there's something that De Niro's doing in this film where it's, like, balancing this. Like, at moments he seems like he's a normal guy. And then he interacts with his environment, and you realize he is only acting in a perceived way that he thinks normal people would act. And it never fits fully. And there's this, like, this boiling underneath here. And, like, in the interaction he has with this Secret Service guy, you could just tell right off the bat there's something wrong with this man. You could see his interactions with sport. Especially at the end, where you know something's up, and, like, Sport knew something was up too. But, like, speaking of Mr. Keitel, that wig, well, probably a wig.
I hope that was
a wig. And his character as that pimp is disgusting. And yeah, look at his pinky fingernail. There's something so interesting about Keitel because Keitel was the original lead of Scorsese films. Who's That Knocking at My Door, Mean Streets, and then he has a supporting role in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, the supporting role in this film, and I'm trying to think what other films he pops up in. And, like, it was a long time before he came back around for The Irishman. Coming back into Scorsese films, but, like, he pops up in this. Jodie Foster, who's, like, probably 12, 13 years old during filming, kills it. She feels so mature and grown up in the way that she handles her on-screen performance. She's vulnerable. And, God, it just makes me feel so gross watching that one scene where Travis is trying to explain to her he doesn't want to do these things with her, yet she's still trying, like, when she goes down to grab his pants. I'm just like...
And also, like, that ending scene, like, when the shootout happens, that happens, like, directly in front of her.
Yeah, two of them get shot right in front of her face. So, like, one of them, literally, right next to her, and that is messed up.
Yeah.
And traumatizing, and it's so unfortunate to see her in that situation, experiencing that. And she does such a great job. Sybil Shepherd does a really fine job in her role. Albert Brooks is a lot... Like, I was mentioning this to Matt if he thought this. When I feel like most of his lines were not in the script. I feel like Albert Brooks is just Albert Brooksing it. And because it very much feels like it's either Paul Schrader wrote that and was like, I need the perfect person to read these. And he's like, Scorsese got Albert Brooks, or Albert Brooks was just vibing and doing his thing, because there's certain things which also, very interesting enough, says some very like discriminatory and stereotypical and racist kinds of things too.
Yeah.
That's thrown around a lot
Yeah, that's
in
definitely
this film.
Definitely a trigger warning, yeah, because if that's disturbing, and it should be. I'm hoping it wasn't just like kind of like a, well, we just talked like this, so let's just like put it in the script. But if that was actually the point where it's kind of like they wanted you to be kind of like disgusted and kind of like shocked in the way like, how these people talk and what they think is like normal and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and, like, mission accomplished.
His colleagues, the very misogynistic and also at times homophobic kinds of conversations that they're having.
And then also like misguidedly progressive.
It's straight, like, you could tell that this is, like, it was a white man, Paul Schrader, who wrote this. Knowing white men, trying to write them as people that are trying to be good, but are just getting in their own way because they really don't get what's appropriate. And, like, you could really feel that in some of the things, especially Wizard Says, Peter Boyle's character. And it's so interesting because, like, this film is littered with these kind of seedy prejudices throughout, and that's just this underlying current through the whole entire film. And I think it all goes back to, this is a very specific look at humanity that Schrader and Scorsese are creating in this film.
I think it's Travis's. Like,
yeah.
There's not a single beautiful thing about New York City. I feel
No.
like everything is like threatening, and like everything, like if it's not like, it's like normal, like whether it be like cultural stuff or like sexuality stuff, then it's like something to kind of like not be, I don't know, it you can't trust it, or it's bad. Yeah, like I feel like a lot of the movie, or the whole movie, is kind of like this point of view with blinders that Travis has.
Exactly. And it's his perspective. We're in his head. And that's the most disturbing thing. And you really get a sense of that when he's in the cab with Palantine. And he's like, you know, the one thing that you could do is somebody has to come in here and clean up this city. Just like, this whole place is a sewer. And just like, he sees this world. He sees humanity as this broken, disgusting thing that needs to be done away with. And that's the world that you see in this film, because it's the world that Travis sees. And like New York in the 70s wasn't great. But like, you don't see any real positive. And even when they're talking about positives of like this Palantine, like trying to, like, we the people, trying to prove things, what are his policies? What's he actually going to do? And you never get that. And because I don't think Travis understands that either. And every time when he tries to volunteer, Betsy's like, what policies do you support? He's like, I don't know about his policies, but I think he'll do a good job. And it's just like, he doesn't know. He's there because he feels he needs to be there to be with her. And there's just this strange unnervingness about his world perspective, and we're stuck in it. And there's not many films that put you in such a place that like will rock you to the core like that.
I feel like there's movies that I've seen with like murderers or school shooters. Like, I've seen movies like that, and I feel like they have like the same kind of mindset where it's like they're very entitled and everything is and they're like super narcissistic, and they know how society should be. Like they're kind of almost kind of like pseudo intellectual like stuff too, like that's going on. There's like a lot of stuff, and I feel like Travis, if there was like a sequel, or if we were to see more of his life, then we would have seen Travis kind of like explode, and that would have been the only logical sequel that could have like progression to the story of him not only hating society, but then also his heroic action kind of being affirmed by like the news, and then also like that Jodie Foster characters, like her parents.
Yep.
Like I feel like I would have a really hard time seeing things from a point of view like of someone that said like I want to be like Travis Bickle. Like kind of those people like on the internet that say like I want to be like the Joker. I see myself as the Joker.
Because Joker is just Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy, and you're like, bam.
Also that, yeah, like it's so interesting. Just like you were talking about, like what was it, First Reform? That's the other straight up.
Yes,
movie?
I was gonna bring that up because like, where does Ethan Hawke's character go? Radicalized, and he's gonna do some terroristic things.
Yeah, like that movie's the way that movie thinks about society, or at least it's not as disillusioned or as kind of like one sided as Taxi Driver, but I think that just this fear that either Schrader has himself or just keeps putting inside of like more than one of his movies. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very disturbing. Like, I feel like it would call to some people who are of that mindset, and then it's kind of like almost like a dog whistle of like, hey, like this is like there's people out there that think just like you, and this is like completely normal, and maybe like you are the right one, everyone else is wrong.
Well, and it's interesting because
wild.
Wolf of Wall Street. Does Wolf of Wall Street glorify it or not?
Mm.
Does Taxi Driver glorify this perspective or not? I feel like Taxi Driver, you just dropped into it, and you're living it, and that's a disturbing thing. And and it's similar. Like you hear Travis Bickle talking to you, talking to himself, talking to somebody. I feel like it's kind of like him writing those letters to his parents, kind of thing. But like, and then in Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort's talking right to the audience, and it's like Scorsese's presenting these things in their most raw way to make it as difficult to watch as possible and like significant and poignant. But I don't think Scorsese's trying to glorify or make these things look good. This is it. You're in it. And that's the challenging thing, though, because if you're not there to understand that you're being challenged and put in this situation, and instead you're just there thinking that, like, okay, this is a perspective. It's like, don't have this perspective. That's not what this movie's trying to say. But it could be construed that way. And I think that's the challenging thing about art, because I think Scorsese puts audiences in those scenarios quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Like, some of his films take it a little bit more black and white, like The Departed. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's why like some people are like, The Departed's not as great as Taxi Driver and Goodfellas, because like it's much more like black and white kind of thing. But like I still think The Departed's great. Mm-hmm. And it is easier to process. And it's much easier to process because like you have Leo's character who is a good person and to anchor onto. You don't really have that in this film. Travis is your world, is his world when you're watching this film, and it's pretty disturbing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I completely agree. I feel like I want to watch this movie again, but not tonight because it's late. But but I feel like I do want to watch this movie again, just one more time, just to kind of like see like how can I just like even more so clearly kind of just like give chunks to, okay, this is when he's slowly starting to go into like the wrong direction. This is when, okay, this is like the point of no return. This is like the worst part. Like, yeah, this movie. Also, this movie doesn't have. I wonder if this movie, if it wasn't so much based on his perspective and it was more kind of like the story watching what he's doing. I wonder if maybe that would have had more of an opportunity for either to be like, I don't know, it's like some sort of weird like filmmaking trick or tip like that would have kind of said in like a more like specific way, what he's doing and what he's thinking is bad. Like you have to know that he's in the wrong. But this movie doesn't really. It's not really kind of wanting you to do that. It's kind of it almost kind of just like says almost like a documentary. Here's this guy. This is what he thinks. We're just gonna follow him.
If I joked around that, like I wish the cameramen would have stepped in.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, because it feels like you're just a voyeur watching his life this whole entire time. You're in there with him in those adult theaters. You're in there in his taxi when he's all alone. And you're there in his head while he's recounting all of his experiences and stuff like that. And you're in it with him. And I don't think this film would have been as great and challenging and arresting if it wasn't in his perspective. I think that's one of the unique things about this and why this is such a 70s film. Such a 70s film. Because like this wouldn't come out in the 80s. I'm like Scorsese was even challenging things in the 80s with some of his films like Raging Bull and King of Comedy, but even he took a step back and did like Color of Money and stuff like that. But like the 70s, this was a time where it's just like you are getting this tough outlook on life, and this one is one of the most disturbing ones that you're going to get. And Scorsese pushes you, and he did that really well in this film. But Matt, do you have any last thoughts, perspectives that you wanted to share about Taxi Driver?
I like... What else do I like about the movie? I really do like the theme, like that jazzy theme. I do like the fact that if you look in the background of one scene, you'll see Martin Scorsese. I forget what scene it is, but it's kind of like the camera going like this, and you see like some random dude in a beard, and it's like, oh wait, glasses. I think that, so I watched Network this morning, and one of the big things about that movie is the fact that, how do I put it, counterculture, it sells, it's interesting.
Sure is.
I wonder if for this movie to come out in the same year as Network, I don't know. I'd be curious to just kind of do like a deep dive of like what was happening in the 70s or in like that. What year did this come out?
Post-Watergate.
Yeah.
Because this is 76, this is post-Watergate, this is pre-Carter coming in, and like Iranian hostage situation going on in a few years after this, but like...
When did Vietnam start?
Oh, Vietnam was over.
Vietnam was over at this point?
Yep.
So if he was
70,
a vet...
I think 75 was when everybody got pulled out.
Oh, so if he was a vet, that means he would have been in which war then?
No, he would have been in Vietnam.
He would have been in Vietnam.
He probably just got home.
Got you. So
and this is like fresh off and this is like we left. We didn't win, we left. And this is a very...
Rest in peace, your comment section.
It's just like, we left Vietnam, we up and left, and things went to shit. Kind of what's happening with Afghanistan. And it's one of those kinds of things where it's like, this was a disillusioned time in America. And it's so very interesting because this takes a deep, dark, disturbing look at what America is on a personal, like, on the ground level. Network takes a look at a societal kind of thing, right? And really looks at the media and stuff like that. And then you have Rocky, which is an inspiring human story that there's still good out in the world. And that trying your hardest actually means something.
That's way more palatable. Way more palatable to way more people.
Yes. And that's probably why it won Best Picture. But the thing is, it's like, this is a film that will challenge you, and Paul Schrader, Scorsese, they will challenge you, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And this is his darkest thing yet, because like Mean Streets is the closest to like a Scorsese film, really. Boxcar Bertha was very interesting too, but like this is a dark, disturbing look at society and challenging, because like at least everybody up to this point, you found ways to really connect on a human level with the protagonist. This challenges you to not. Like, you're stuck there with him, and you need to not connect with him despite the fact that you're experiencing his whole entire life perspective. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about this film, and what this film will try to do to you, is see, are you going to push back and like, no, this is not good to me?
And it's like coming out in the 70s when all that stuff is happening, so hopefully hopefully most people, I guess they had to have, unless they were unless they had severe like mental problems, like emotional health problems. Like this movie is kind of like saying like if you don't watch out, if you become so apathetic, so detached, you can very well become Travis, and that should be incredibly disturbing
Yep.
to anyone of any time period, because like we definitely saw that with Joker, and all that outrage from the Todd Phillips movie, and people were like afraid that it was going to kind of like make people do things, and it was going to kind of, I don't know, to take the leash off of society. You know what I mean? Like that's I don't know. This is a very interesting movie.
Sure is.
Very interesting movie.
But those are our thoughts on Taxi Driver. Next week, I'm going to be doing a musical, New York, New York,
Very different.
with Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro.
Something very different.
And now for something completely different.
There we go.
And speaking of, time for recommendations. So you were alluding to this before, Matt, but what's your recommendation?
There we go. All right. So I saw this movie Raw on Netflix. This the director. I'm not gonna try to say the name. But the director, she just put out another movie. I think Titan. Yeah, that just came out. That is a hard movie to watch. It is a hard movie to digest, and
Some disturbing body horror.
Yeah.
And one of the most messed up pregnancies I've ever seen in a movie.
And also just like the morality of it, and not just for the fact that like
your protagonist is a serial killer.
Yeah, and that's probably.
That's just the beginning.
That's just the beginning, and
that's like the
just,
first act of the
like,
movie.
Wow, but the movie Raw, this movie is very interesting because it will test your stomach. It will make you, because when you kind of like look at the Netflix or like the Wikipedia like description, it's like, oh, like, is this coming of age movie, and this person is kind of like learning about like herself, and she's kind of like awakening in this new environment. She's in vet school to be a veterinarian, and
that awakening involves flesh.
Yeah, cannibalism.
Man flesh.
It does not like shy away from like watching stuff. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to fast forward through that one scene. You know what I'm talking about with the waxing. Yeah. Wow, man, that scene goes on and on. And I've seen what movies I've seen. Videodrome. That movie will make anybody vomit, and yeah,
Stomach vagina.
Yeah, like what other movie I've seen?
Put your videotapes in stomach vagina.
The Fly, same director, but I'm trying to think of disgusting things you've
Not
seen.
Cronenberg.
Yeah, like you've seen Suspiria, like.
Oh God, the new Suspiria, Luca Guadagnino's specific Suspiria. There's some body horror in that and a half.
But you can watch that probably way more than you can watch Raw.
Yeah, because it's an otherworldly kind of grotesque. This is just like, what if people just ate people?
Yeah.
And they ate people. They eat people. They sure do.
Yeah, but good movie. Either way, disgusting but really good movie. And
French people.
And it's not the gratuitous. Like there is, except for that one scene maybe. Like the point of it isn't just to disturb you. So good movie, recommend it. Halloween, all that stuff.
There you go. And mine's a little bit, well, in comparison, a little bit more palatable, but this one's about rape. And this is The Last Duel, which, fun fact, you get to watch it twice. Because I got to see Ridley Scott's new film today, and it blew me away. Like, this hit me way harder than I ever expected it to. It reminded me how great of an action director Ridley Scott can be. Because there's some war scenes at the beginning, and very specifically when you get to the duel, it's one of the most brutal, visceral experiences I've watched in a film, watching two people fight each other. Damn. Like, take anything from Gladiator and turn up the intensity.
What was the movie that he directed before this? Was it the Alien thing?
All the Money in the World? Was that the last one?
I can't remember. Also, what was the name of the last Alien movie?
Covenant.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, because
just like that.
Ridley Scott hasn't done a whole lot in the past few years. Because, like,
which is a good thing.
He directed 2 episodes of Raised by Wolves. He directed a Hennessy music video.
Okay.
Back in 2017 was both All the Money in the World and Alien Covenant.
There we go.
And then The Martian in 2015. But even before that was Exodus, Gods and Kings. Which, to be fair, I haven't seen. So...
Would you watch it?
I would. To at least see it. The Counselor, heard really bad things about that. Prometheus and Robin Hood in 2010. So, like, the 2010s outside of The Martian, which killed it, and All the Money in the World, which I think is a really good film. And, like, Prometheus and Covenant both have really strong elements about them, but the less you ponder on it, the better. Because the more you do, the more you'll realize, oh, this is dumb.
This is wet paper.
But Last Duel has some fantastic performances, which the most interesting thing is, the film is, I'm going to be the cliche and call this a Rashomon-esque movie, because you get 3 chapters where each character tells their perspective of this situation. And you see it from their perspective, which means all the actors are acting as their characters from other people's perspectives. So you get to see Matt Damon play his character a couple different ways. Adam Driver, Jodie Comer. Ben Affleck, you only really get to see through Adam Driver's point of view. And what the most surprising thing about this movie is that Ben Affleck is seriously not miscast in this movie, because basically he's just a big douchey frat bro lord in France. And I'm just like, wow, he really played this well. But the thing is, Damon's really strong. Adam Driver is just Adam Driver. Kills it. And Jodie Comer is a real standout of this movie. And it's something really impressive. And looking for House of Gucci. Because the Father, the Son, and the House of Gucci.
Yeah, Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. Maybe. And Adam Driver again. And Jared Leto in a fat suit. She's a real firecracker.
When does that come out?
A month. I think it comes out around... I think it's the Thanksgiving week that it comes out. But those are our recommendations this week. And that's the show. So, Matt, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
And I'm sure you'll be back for more Scorsese. Because I'm doing Scorsese until June. But thank all of you for tuning in and always supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.